Hello everyone, myself Manish Kumar Dubey and I am faculty at Calcutta University School of Basic and Applied Sciences at the Department of Life Sciences. And today we are going to discuss about the topic composition and function of cell. The following topic is covered under the course Cell Biology. Now before going into detail about the topic, let us see the objective of today's lecture. So the first objective is to understand the composition of cell, to know the function of cell organelle, to differentiate between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, and last but not the least, to differentiate between plant and animal cells. Now, first of all, we will see the introduction about the cell. So all living organisms, as we know, are composed of cell and they compose the repeated structural unit in the living organism. The cell in biology, the basic membrane bound unit that contain the fundamental molecule of life, of which all living organisms are composed. A cell is often a complete organism in itself, like animals, or it can be bacteria or yeast. They are means single-celled organism. The cell cooperate with other specialized cell to form a tissue, and this tissue system later on form a other complex system like organ system, and when these organ system they combine together, they can give rise to multicellular animals. Now all cells are much larger than the atom if we talk about the size of the cell, but still they are very small. Means most of the cell we have to use the microscope, means to visualize the cell. So the smallest known cell are a group of teeny bacteria called mycoplasma. Mycoplasma are also known as PPLO, pleuropneumonia-like organism, or they are also called as jokers of microbiology. So what is the roughly estimated size of mycoplasma? It's around 0.2 micrometer. But if we talk about the size of other bacteria, it is more than 0.4 micrometer up to 10 micrometer. Now if we see the human cells, they are around 400,000 times larger than the mycoplasma bacterial cell, or human cells is roughly around 20 micrometer. And if we see the human body, it is made up of over more than 30 billion cells, and in these if we combine together around 10,000 cells, then it can form the head of a pin. Means by that comparison we can estimate what is the size of the cell and how big the cell can look like. Now let's see the type of cell in more detail. So the first type of cell, as we can see in the diagram, is eukaryotic cell structure. So in eukaryotic cell, as we have seen, I have already explained, they have well defined nucleus that is surrounded by a nuclear envelope. Further, they have different kind of organelle as well inside their cytoplasm, like ribosome, then rough endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum. They have a Golgi bodies, then mitochondria, centrioles, then they have lysosome as well, and they have genetic material that is suspended inside the nucleus. Now, if we see the different part of eukaryotic cell and their function, so the outer membrane of this eukaryotic cell, it is formed by plasma membrane in the case of animal cell, whereas in the case of plant cell, the outer membrane it is called as cell wall. So plant cell have cell wall because they need more protection. That's why they have the cell wall, whereas animal cell lack the cell wall. So what is plasma membrane? Plasma membrane all is a well defined outer boundary of the cell in case of animal cell, and a cell is enclosed by plasma membrane which form a selective barrier that allows nutrient to enter and waste product to leave the cell. The interior of the cell is organized into many specialized compartments as well, which is called as organelles, each surrounded by separate membranes. Mostly the organelles they are get surrounded by a separate membrane. Uh, but there is ribosome that do not have any separate membrane. They have mostly the proteinaceous membrane over it. Now, other well-defined region inside the eukaryotic organism or eukaryotic cell is nucleus. It is one of the also a organelle that is mainly concerned with genetic information, and it mainly contains the information that is necessary for cell growth and reproduction. Now mitochondria, as we know, mitochondria it is called as powerhouse of the cell, and here mainly cellular respiration take place or the production of ATP take place. Now the another cell organelle important, that is lysosome, where where digestion of material take place, and it involved in a process get out the remaining particle that is formed after digestion that get out of the cell by a process called phagocytosis. Now there is other important organelle that is mainly deal with secretion, that is called as endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus. They mainly participate in protein synthesis, processing, glycosylation, sorting and directing them to a proper location. Then another specialized organelle that is mostly semi-conservative in nature, that is called as chloroplast. It is similar like mitochondria, but the chloroplast is mainly present in plant cell, and it is responsible in plant cell for photosynthesis, where the energy of the sunlight is used, and with the help of chloroplast it gets converted into carbohydrate by using carbon dioxide and water. Now, if we see the composition of the cell, then around 70% of the total weight of the dry weight of the cell is formed by water. Then what else is present inside the cell? They are inorganic ions that constitute about 1% of the cell. And these inorganic ions are mainly in the form of sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium and chloride, etc. Then there are numerous small metabolites. They also constitute around 3% dry weight of the cell. Then the other major macromolecule that form that is a constituent that form the constituent of the cell, they are protein that form around roughly 8% of the total weight of the cell. Then RNA is around 11% in the cell, and these RNA, the major fraction of these RNA, around 75%, is formed by ribosome. We know that ribosome are ribonucleoprotein that is made up of ribosomal RNA and proteins. Then around 0.25% of the cell it is formed with DNA. Then there are phospholipid and lipids as well in the cell that mainly form the plasma membrane as well as organelle membrane. Then cell also contain different polysaccharide as a storage granule or cytoplasmic inclusion in them, and they roughly formed around 2% of the total dry weight of the cell. Now, if we see the prokaryotic cell, so here we can see a typical bacterial cell that is prokaryotic in nature. That means they lack that well-defined nucleus or true nucleus, or the DNA is freely suspended in a cytoplasm. It is not protected by any nuclear membrane, and this kind of condition it is called as nucleoid. So what are the things that are present in a typical prokaryotic cell? The typical prokaryotic cell have external uh, features that is divided into two parts, that is appendages can be in a form of flagella, pili and fimbriae. So flagella is maybe variable in number, it can be 1 2 or means it can be more than 10. Then what is pili? Pili are much smaller in number, means there can be only 1 or 2 pili inside in a cell. Then fimbriae are short blister like molecules, and they are present all over the surface of the cell. Then they also have outer coating that is called as glycocalyx, and glycocalyx is two type, one is capsule and other is slime layer. So what is the difference between capsule and slime layer? Capsule is tightly held with the cell wall, and it is mainly helping protecting the cell against the desiccation. Similar is the function of slime layer, but slime layer is very means loosely attached to the cell or to the cell wall. It is also helping protecting the cell from desiccation. Then as we move inside the prokaryotic cell, then we will found the cell envelope. So the cell envelope, it is mainly made up of cell wall and cell membrane. However, in the case of gram-negative bacteria, we will also found outer membrane outside the cell wall that constitute the cell envelope. Then inside the cell envelope, what we will found? We will found protoplasm, and inside the protoplasm, what we will get? We will found that all the necessary organelles that are present in a eukaryotic cell, they are absent there, whereas they have important ribosome that is of 70s type. They have extra chromosomal nuclear material that is called as plasmid inside it. It depends upon the type of bacteria. The bacteria can have plasmid, or eukaryotic cell, prokaryotic cell can have plasmid, or they can lack the plasmid. Then they can have freely suspended nuclear material that is called as nucleoid. They can have various kind of cytoplasmic inclusion like polyhydroxybutyrate and other kind of storage molecule like fat droplets, then gas vacuoles, and they can have actin cytoskeleton is also reported in certain kind of prokaryotic cell to support the means cell. Then they can also have endospores as well. So all these things together, external cell envelope and internal structures, they are present mostly in all the prokaryotic cells. Now if we see the eukaryotic cell, we have already discussed what is eukaryotic cell. Eukaryotic cell can be further divided into animal cell and plant cell, but the basic things remain the same. They also have the eukaryotic cell can also be divided into three parts: external, cell envelope, and internal part. So in the external part, we will found that they contain the appendages like flagella and cilia, but it is not necessary that all the eukaryotic cell they have flagella and cilia. They are mostly present in a specialized cell. Now if we go inside the towards the cell envelope, then we will found that the cell mainly contain cell wall, but the cell wall is absent in animal cell, and cell wall is mainly present in plant cell. And beneath the cell wall lies the plasma membrane that is mostly semi-permeable in nature, and it surrounds the cell. So plasma membrane is present in every eukaryotic organism. Now as we move inside the plasma membrane, what we will get? We will get cytoplasm, inside which various cell organelles are suspended. And what are those organelles? Those organelles are chloroplast, ribosome, rough endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi bodies, then vacuole, then peroxisome, then mitochondria, lysosome. So these are important cell organelles that are present in a typical eukaryotic cell. They also contain various kind of cell inclusion and storage granules like fat deposit, glycogen granules. Starch granules are very rich in plant cells. Then plasmid. If we talk about the plasmid are mostly absent in eukaryotic cell. However, certain eukaryotic cell like yeast cell, they can contain the plasmid. Now we have already seen the means various component of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell in the various images that is provided in the previous slides. Now we will differentiate about the prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. That means on the basis of what feature we can differentiate between these two cells. So one of the important feature that is different in both the type of cell is the size. The prokaryotic cell is generally smaller in size. It is roughly around 1 to 4 micrometer or less than that. Whereas as compared to the prokaryotic cell, eukaryotic cell is much larger in size, and it is generally more than 5 micrometer in diameter. Now if we see the cell type, the prokaryotic cells are mostly unicellular like most of the bacteria. However, there are certain cyanobacteria that can be multicellular. But if we see the eukaryotic cell, most of the eukaryotic cells are multicellular. However, certain eukaryotic cells like protozoa or protista, they have unicellular cells. Now the nucleus. Nucleus is very important to differentiate between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Pro means primitive type of prokaryotic cell generally have primitive type of nucleus that is not surrounded by any nuclear membrane or that is devoid of nuclear membrane, whereas the eukaryotic cell they have true nucleus and which is surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Now if we see the chromosome, so the chromosome, if we see in prokaryotic cell, it is generally circular or haploid and without the histone protein, whereas if we see the eukaryotic cell, it is mostly diploid or linear and with the presence of histone protein that stabilize the chromosome in eukaryotic cell. Now if we see the genes, the genes are expressed in group that is called operons, whereas in eukaryotic cell the genes are expressed individually. Now prokaryotic cell mainly divide by using binary fission or budding, whereas mostly the eukaryotic cell they mainly reproduce by mitosis. Now the sexual reproduction is mostly absent in prokaryotic cell or it is in a reduced form like transformation, transfection or uh, recombination, whereas the sexual reproduction in eukaryotic cell it mainly involves meiosis. If we talk about permeability of nuclear membrane, it is totally absent, whereas the nuclear membrane is selective in the case of eukaryotic cell. The cytoplasmic streaming it is also absent in prokaryotic cell, however it is present in eukaryotic cell. Cytoskeleton like actin uh, they are absent in prokaryotic cell but they are present in eukaryotic cell. Now the various processes like pinocytosis they are absent in prokaryotic cell, however they are present in eukaryotic cell. The gas vacuole, the like cyanobacteria they can have the gas vacuoles, however the eukaryotic cell they generally lack the gas vacuoles inside them. Now if we see the ribosome is generally smaller or it is of 70s type which is distributed in most in cytoplasm in case of prokaryotic cell. However, if we see the eukaryotic cell, the ribosome they are generally larger in size or ATS type of ribosome that is mainly found freely in cytoplasm. However, if we see the other organelles like mitochondria and chloroplast, they have 70s type of ribosome inside them. So other cell organelles like mitochondria, chloroplast, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi bodies, and membrane-bound vacuoles, lysosome, peroxisome, microtubules, and they are absent, totally absent in prokaryotic cell. However, these cell organelles they are present in eukaryotic cell. Now, if we see the flagella, so the flagella is in prokaryotic cell, it is mainly composed of protein called flagellin. However, in case of eukaryotic cell, flagella have more complex structure and it is have 9+2 arrangement of tubulin protein inside it. So the typical example of prokaryotic cell is bacteria, archaea and cyanobacterial cells. However, the typical example of eukaryotic cell is plant cell, animal cell, fungal cell or protozoan or protist cell. Now what is the eukaryotic cell is further divided into two types. One is plant cell and another is animal cell. So what is the difference between plant cell and animal cell? The plant cell are generally larger than animal cell. Then the plant cell they have a cell wall over their plasma membrane. However, the animal cell lack the cell wall. Further, the plant cell have plasmodemata. That is, they are the means a type of channel that connect the two cells together, and that is responsible for the movement of water molecule and other molecule from two adjacent cell. However, the plasmodemata is totally absent in animal cell. Plant cell, as we know, they have the capacity to do photosynthesis, and for to carry out this photosynthesis, they have a specialized organelle inside them that is called as chloroplast. However, animal cell they lack the capacity to do photosynthesis and they totally lack the chloroplast. Now, the major fraction of the plant cell it is formed by vacuole, and the vacuole is much larger in plant cell and it is a permanent structure. However, the vacuole is much smaller in animal cell and it is a temporary structure. Now the vacuole that is present in plant cell, it is mostly surrounded by a membrane that is called as tonoplast. However, in the case of animal cell, the tonoplast is totally absent, or vacuole do not have a proteinaceous membrane over it. Now the centrioles that are responsible for cell division, it is absent in plant cell, but the centrioles they are present in animal cell. Now nucleus is towards the periphery or towards a specialized region of periphery of the cell in the case of plant cell, but nucleus is mostly present at the center in case of animal cell. Now the lysosomes, that is another important organelle that is also called as suicidal bag of the cell. They are rare, or means their number is greatly reduced in the case of plant cell. However, lysosome they are generally uh, much in number in the case of animal cell. Now the storage material in plant cell is generally starch grains. However, the storage material in the case of animal cell is glycogen granules. Now these are the references which I followed to prepare this. Thank you.